The relevant facts of the case are controlled in courts of law by statutory authority upon which Governor Northam has asserted he had relied for authority to initiate the lockdown orders and commenced his COVID-19 response. In courts of record, like the Circuit Court, where we commenced our legal actions against the governor on April 2nd, having been delayed by the pandemonium created by his stay-at-home decree on March 31st, it is imperative not to rely upon that which you may believe or think in your head to be the law, but upon that which is in some official record. And the legal authority for the lockdowns with which most tend to be familiar is not his cancellation of all public gatherings involving 100 persons or more on March 15th, but rather his March 17th decree falling on the actual observance of St. Patrick's Day that made all non-essential social gatherings, including attendance at devotional worship services, a point of contention raised under the Free Exercise Clause for the First Amendment in our litigation that arbitrarily and capriciously allege the mystically infectious qualities of gatherings exceeding 10 or more persons. In this document, we find a string of whereas statements sounding very official, framed in the formalistic legalese, including therapeutically soothing incantations like the assertion that the state health commissioner desires to protect the public health of all Virginians, reminding all that he had declared a state of emergency due to COVID-19 on March 12, 2020 in Executive Order number 51, asserting conclusively, note conclusively, that COVID-19 spreads from person to person, transmitted via respiratory droplets, and can be spread from an infected person who does not have symptoms to another person, expressing concerns that no current vaccine or known treatment options exist at this time, and assuring all with the authority of a concurring medical endorsement from the norm that he had, relying upon his less than exemplary training of record, while serving as the state health commissioner appointed by Dr. Ralph, declared COVID-19 a disease of public health threat on February 7th, 2020. And based upon the most recent disclosures from the Virginia Department of Health, pursuant to a request for information under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, this is the sole authority upon which the entire COVID-19 response continues to rest at the present date. In law school, you would be required to state the facts of the case, and this is a concise review of the relevant facts. So dispensing with that preliminary requirement, if you are engaged in the practice of law, prayerfully engaged in such employment as an actual litigator, a challenge that surprisingly many avoid, one of the next required steps in this systematic analysis is to perform some legal research to ascertain the controlling law, for which just over the summer, the U.S. Supreme Court propitiously provided a precedent in settled law in the well-publicized DACA case, applauded even on social media by Governor Ralph Northam at his COVID-19 update pertaining to minority infections that had run rampant, and surrounded by an entourage of loyal and dedicated Democrat Party leaders and progressive activists in the county of Fairfax. In the case of Department of Homeland Security, the Regents of the University of California, that judicial review of agency action is limited to the grounds that the agency invoked when it took the action. Applause, applause. All that which was known at the time on March 17th for the purposes of argument when the sweeping lockdown order regime and COVID-19 response officially with great fanfare began. Well, according to the March 17th order, the two leading physicians in the state had endorsed the whereas statement that they had conclusively determined that COVID-19 spreads from person to person, transmitted via respiratory droplets, and can be spread from an infected person who does not have symptoms to another person. According to their recent FOIA reply, they have admitted that their sole authority for this determination was the guidance of the Centers for Disease Control. And in a hearing on a motion for temporary restraining order that was held on April 15th, with all defendants, including the governor and his chief medical officer in absentia, as well as the mayor for the city of Alexandria, having failed to enter an appearance, the circuit court reiterated verbatim the guidance upon which the governor and his chief medical officer had relied from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC. But as this matter turns upon the examination of the exact words of the nation's leading infectious disease control experts, which is actually not Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Allergy and Infectious Disease Agency, or NIAID, but rather Dr. Robert Redfield, a name you rarely hear in the news as an appointee of the president, who specifically included a conditional phrase before that which Doctors Northam and Oliver declared as an indisputable fact, as he stated actually very cautiously at that time, as reflected even in the dismissal order by the Alexandria Circuit Court in the motion for temporary restraining order, that the virus is thought to be spread by the means by which Doctors Northam and Oliver apparently simply believed, based upon no apparent evidence, was the established medical fact. How did they make this determination? There is very little evidence in any record except the official announcement made by Dr. Al Oliver on February 7th, as reflected in the lockdown order on March 17th and recently provided to us in a response to a FOIA. What revelations or disclosures can be gleaned from a robust examination of that document of official record? Dr. Oliver stated that as of February 7th, he and his office had been closely monitoring an outbreak of respiratory illness caused by a novel or new coronavirus termed 2019 nCoV that was first detected in Wuhan City, Hubei Province, China, and that continues to expand. And since Dr. Northam assured everyone on March 17th that the state health commissioner desires to protect the public health of all Virginians, we can at least find some feelings of efficacy and empowerment in the pandemic crisis that historically brings feelings of despair, fear, and confusion. Our elected leaders and appointed leaders may have been diligently at work as early as February 7th, monitoring the developments of this deadly pathogen or not. A parade through the main business district of the city of Alexandria, notwithstanding on the very day that COVID-19 arrived in Virginia. Before we filed our action against the governor, and after our examination of Situation Report number 3 from the World Health Organization, published on January 23rd, diligently monitoring the virus and relying upon a report from MOSLAT that they had used in the report published on January 20th, 2020, that had included a standard proliferation projection of the pathogen if it had managed somehow to escape the lockdowns in China and proceeded to spread domestically to other regions in China or even internationally. It found specifically that there had been a deviant pattern of migration from that which would have been expected in a normalized random distribution, attaching to random human hosts, finding its explosive emergence, oddly, in the Republic of South Korea, an avowed enemy of the Chinese Communist Party, a fact that we had brought to the attention of Senator Mark Warner, as well as the World Health Organization, for their failure to highlight this important fact in their situation report that had included the graphic illustration in the document to which they had made reference to support their conclusions in their situation report. You actually had to search for it, click links, and go find the graphic illustration. In a due diligence search of the official documents of public health authorities, could not a law firm engaged in a challenge against the lockdown have located this fact? Perhaps. Was I, as a retired military intelligence officer who had served as the operations officer for all U.S. Army Strategic Counterintelligence and who had played an instrumental role in launching the intelligence agency, that was alleged to have alerted the president last November, as belligerently asserted by George Stephanopoulos, and ABC News around the same time that we were initiating our litigations in April. That is a matter for a trial of fact to decide. But given the failure of the governor to accept even a waiver of service, a trial on the merits of this issue remains elusive because he has not consented to personal jurisdiction from the court, apparently as a king in derogation of a basic civil right to due process and for redress against grievances opposed by the government regulations, with facts indicative of a conspiracy to violate civil rights, a felony under 18 U.S.C. Section 241, punishable by up to 10 years in prison and/or fines. My name is Major Mike Webb, and by God, I am running for governor of Virginia. I ask every Christian, every conservative, every Republican, every Democrat, every liberal, every conservative, and every Virginian and American true to like the motto of the imagery. Follow me and we shall overcome. Honest. And y'all come back now. Yeah. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb. Guide me and keep me in the shelter of your care each day. 'Cause I am a seeker and you are a keeper. You are a leader, won't you show